All right, let's dive right into this explainer and explore how you actually think about money, happiness, and your own personal freedom, all based on some incredibly brilliant insights from Morgan Housel. We're going to look really closely at ordinary, everyday decisions. You know, the kind of choices you and I agonize over sitting at the kitchen table to figure out what is really driving our wallets. Because it turns out, the way we handle our cash, it honestly has very little to do with math. It has absolutely everything to do with our deeply human emotions. Think about the last time you saw someone make just a totally wild financial choice. Maybe it was a neighbor who financed a ridiculously expensive boat they literally never use, or a relative who absolutely refuses to spend a single dime and hoards cash like the world is ending tomorrow. It is so easy to point fingers, right? Well, before we judge them, let's look in the mirror for a second and explore why we all do crazy things with our cash. Because the truth is, when you look closely at the human behavior behind the bank accounts, the irrational suddenly starts to look completely rational. So, Section 1, you are not crazy, and why our financial habits actually make perfect sense. Look, it's incredibly easy to feel irrational about your spending, to wonder why you can't just stick to a simple budget, or why you panic when you see your bank balance dip even a little bit. But the way you were raised, the specific generation you were born into, the economy you experienced when you got your first job, and even the emotional holes you felt growing up, all of that completely shapes your current financial fears and desires. If you grew up in a time of scarcity or watched your parents struggle to make ends meet, hoarding money today probably feels like a warm, protective blanket. On the flip side, if you grew up feeling kind of invisible, spending money on flashy things as an adult might just be your way of finally asking for attention. It's a profoundly human response to your environment. There is a fantastic principle from social work that hits the nail on the head here. All behavior makes sense with enough information. Whether you hoard cash out of this intense need for safety or you spend it recklessly for attention, it makes perfect sense to you in the moment. When we stop looking at spreadsheets and start looking at the actual faces and stories of the human beings holding the credit cards, we realize there's no single right way to manage money. We're all just trying to feel safe, secure, and valued in a really unpredictable world. Moving on to Section 2, the trap of comparison, the invisible hamster wheel of modern life. Let's break down how this hamster wheel actually works. It's all about the moving goalposts of comparison. Step 1, you feel inadequate compared to your peers. Step 2, you buy the car or the house to catch up. And Step 3, the goalpost instantly moves again. Think about it. You finally get the house or the car you saved up for, but because your social media feed is constantly pushing curated images of ordinary people who suddenly have even more, that feeling of inadequacy never actually vanishes. You just end up running faster and faster on the exact same wheel, completely exhausted, wondering why the finish line keeps disappearing on you. Consider this incredibly raw realization from Will Smith. He said that when he was poor and depressed, he had hope. But when he was rich and depressed, he lost all his hope. Will Smith realized this the hard way. When you have all the money in the world and you're still depressed, you lose that comforting illusion that more money is going to magically fix your psychological problems. When ordinary people dream of winning the lottery, what they're really dreaming of is that money will cure their anxiety and sadness. But when the external wealth arrives and the internal pain remains, it is absolutely devastating. This whole relentless pursuit leads to something called social debt. It acts as a massive anchor on your happiness that occurs when the money or fame you acquire dictates how others treat you, and worse, controls how you see yourself. Think about it. Whenever you buy things on credit just to impress people, maybe even people you don't particularly like, you accumulate social debt. You are literally turning your hard-earned money into a psychological liability rather than a tool for well-being. Your core identity gets all tied up in keeping up an image, and let me tell you, that debt is way heavier than any credit card balance. Which brings us to Section 3, buying freedom, not things. Let's talk about the ultimate utility of your money. If money can't buy lasting happiness through material goods, what is the point of earning it? Well, here is a real game changer. The highest utility of money isn't buying things, it's buying freedom. The truest, most profound value of wealth is autonomy. It is the ability to wake up every single morning, stare at the ceiling, and say, I can do whatever the hell I want today. It's not necessarily about retiring to a beach to do nothing. It's about having the power to say no to a toxic boss, or the ability to take a lower-paying job you actually love, or just the peace of mind knowing a medical emergency won't absolutely ruin your life. Money is a shield, not a status symbol. Housel points out this beautiful, totally relatable truth. An expensive luxury vacation might be a 10 out of 10 experience, but simply sitting on your living room floor playing Legos with your kids on a random Tuesday, that's an 8.5. What actually brings immense, genuine joy is the unstructured time, not the luxury. Having the freedom to just disconnect from your phone and be entirely present with the people you love is where the magic happens. The money didn't buy the joy of the Legos, it bought the time to sit on the floor in the first place. Notice the profound paradigm shift between how we live and how we're actually going to be remembered. We spend so much of our waking lives agonizing over resume virtues, our job titles, our net worth, the square footage of our house. But honestly, nobody is going to stand up at your funeral and read out your mutual fund portfolio. They're going to talk about your eulogy virtues, being a present parent, spending unstructured time, helping friends out of a jam. We really need to stop dedicating our lives to resume virtues and use our freedom to cultivate the eulogy virtues that actually matter to the human heart. So what does a good life actually look like on paper? Here is an incredibly practical, grounded formula. It basically boils down to independence plus purpose. Independence gives you autonomy over your own time, and purpose gives you a reason to get out of bed, whether that's meaningful work, raising a family, or serving your community. Money is simply the psychological tool you use to secure those two pillars. When you view every single dollar you save as a down payment on your own independence, suddenly saving isn't a sacrifice at all. It actually becomes a joy. Finally, Section 4. Your future regret. This is all about using your future self to guide today's choices. As the legendary psychologist Daniel Kahneman noted, the secret to financial well-being isn't some complex math equation. It is accurately anticipating what you will truly regret missing out on decades from now. It requires avoiding the extremes. If you're a strict penny pincher, you might reach old age with a massive bank account, but deep regret that you never actually lived. On the other hand, if you blow every paycheck chasing thrills today, you might reach middle age regretting that you can't afford to send your kids to college. A well-calibrated sense of future regret is basically the ultimate financial compass. And hey, if you want a sneak peek at what your future self will probably say, look at this stunning piece of data. When gerontologists interviewed 1,100-year-olds, asking them to look back on a full century of living, not a single one, literally zero, wished they had earned more money. They universally wished they had spent more time with the people they loved. They wished for more connection, more empathy, and more shared human experiences. The data on what actually matters at the end of the line is overwhelmingly clear. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this one final thought to carry with you. When you are on your deathbed, what will you actually regret? Take a really close look at the financial decisions you are making this very week. Are your daily habits actually buying you the freedom to avoid future regret? Are you building a life full of shiny objects, or are you building a life full of time, purpose, and deep human connection? Because that answer, it might just change the way you spend your very next dollar.